Hi everyone, this is Brian and welcome to my power case Ring of Wire.
You are going to practice a realistic case interview. If you are watching this on YouTube, I want you to comment on this video with your actual responses. I will then reply back with my assessment of your response as either good or great.
Okay, let's get started. The client is a manufacturer of copper electrical wiring for commercial building applications. They also sell plastic piping and lighting products. They have a leading share of the copper electrical wiring market. For over 5 years, this market operated with just 3 dominant players, including our client. Within the last year, however, several smaller competitors have entered the copper electrical wiring market. Specifically, our client wants to know why these smaller competitors all of a sudden entered this market and what, if any, action should the client take in responding. So with that said, pause the video now and write down any clarifying questions you have. Okay, to address any clarifications you may have had, our client and all the competitors just operate in the United States. Our client procures the copper and manufactures it into electrical wiring, and our client sells to major distributors of commercial building materials and equipment. So go ahead and take a few moments to lay down how you would approach this problem. Pause the video now, write down your structure, and then say it out loud. Now I'm going to talk through an example of a good typical case structure. Okay, I like to understand two components. The first is the market and the second is financials. So in terms of the market, I'd like to understand, is the market growing and what's the size? And then for financials, I like to know our clients' financials like revenue and costs, and I like to understand the competitors' financials as well. Now go ahead and let me know where you would like to start and why. Pause the video for just a few moments, write down your key questions that you'd like to explore, and then say them out loud. Now, I'm going to talk through an example of a great typical way of examining and uncovering. Okay, so starting with the market, I'd like to understand the growth of the market and the size. And regarding the client, I'd like to understand our client's revenue and costs. For the new entrants, do we have any information on their financials? And do we know how big they are? Here are the answers to your questions. The market is relatively flat. Our client has shared their financials with us that we can take a look at in a bit. The new entrants sell 5% of the volume as we do, and we sell 1 billion pounds per year. The new entrants price at a 2% discount to us on a per pound basis, and we'll have to estimate the new entrants' costs. Here's some information we have on the client's financials. Cost of goods sold is primarily made up of the cost to procure the copper ore from mining companies. Variable overhead is the labor cost to operate the machinery, and fixed overhead is primarily the cost of permits. So take a quick moment to look through, without doing any calculations just yet. If we know the average new entrant produces just 1/20th of our volume, how would you use this information to estimate the new entrant's financials? Okay, pause the video for just a few moments and talk out loud how you'd estimate this. Now, I'm going to talk through an example of a good, typical way of uncovering the nuggets. Okay, I would convert our client's financials into dollars per pound, and then I could estimate if the dollars per pound would be higher or lower for the average new entrant. So on a dollar per pound basis, I'd expect prices to be lower since we already have information that they sell at a discount to us. And I'm thinking cost of goods sold would be similar or maybe higher. I'm thinking variable overhead would be comparable, and maybe their fixed costs are higher. So the client found out some additional information. The average new entrant's cost of goods sold per pound is 20% more than our client's. Their variable cost per pound is the same as our client, and they also have the same fixed cost of $5 million. And as you were already told, they priced at a 2% discount to us on a per pound basis. So with that information, go ahead and calculate how much does the average new entrant make in profit per pound. So pause the video for just a few moments and talk out loud your math calculations. Now, I'm going to talk through an example of a good, typical way of doing this math. So the revenue is 4,000 million, so 4 billion times 1/20th, because that's what their size is, times at a 98% discount. So I'll have to do that math. 4,000 over 20 is 200 million. 2% of 200. So 10% is 20, 1% is 2, so that's 4 off 200, so that's 196 million. Cost of goods sold, 3,000 million times 1 over 20 times 120. So let's see, so that goes into 500, 50, yeah, so 3,000 times 120 would be 150, and then another 10% would be another 30 on 150, so that's 180. Okay. One variable overhead is 60 million times 1 over 20, so that's 3 million. Fixed overhead's 5 million, so that's given. So the profit's 196 minus 180 minus 3 minus 5 equals 16 minus 3 is 13 minus 5 equals 8 million. And 8 million over 50 million, which is the size, the new entrant. So 8 million over 100 million would be 8 cents. So having the denominator, so that's double, so that's 16 cents in profit per pound for the average new entrant. So we learned from the client that for several years they had been paying around $3.50 in cost of goods sold per pound to procure the copper ore. Only in the last year really did the costs for copper ore drop to $3 due to new copper mines that were found. So given all that you know, what could the client do to combat these new entrants? So pause the video for just a few moments and talk out loud and jot down some of your thoughts. Now, I'm going to talk through an example of a good, typical way of generating ideas. Okay, well, the client could potentially lower its price to match these new entrants, but its larger competitors may respond and cause a price war, and this would hurt our overall profit margin. So let's say the senior VP walks in and wants a quick overview of your findings and recommendations. What would you tell him? Now, I'm going to talk through an example of a good, typical recommendation. So we found that the competitors recently entered the market because it was profitable for them to do so. This is because the cost of the copper ore dropped and they were able to make a small profit. However, they don't seem to be that big of a threat to us because the cost of their copper ore could increase in the future and wipe them out since their margins are so thin.
Now that you finished the case, I want to remind you to comment on this video with your actual responses. I will then reply back and score each of your responses as either good or great. Go ahead and pause the video now so you can see how I would grade you. What you just saw was a realistic example among the top tier consulting firms. The responses that you heard are what I would consider to be good, but not great answers. Unfortunately, these merely good responses will not get you an offer from the top tier consulting firms. Given the intense degree of the competition, only great performance will virtually guarantee an offer. If you are to take away just one thing, it is this fact. The bar to pass is much higher than you think. You need to see and practice what great performance looks like. So to see the same case with a top 1% performance, just go to passthecase.com/great.